Hello, everyone. Hello. First and foremost, I was looking in the chat in locals, and I agree with that assessment by that tweet you put up, Red Eagle Politics. For all of this talk about Biden doing badly in Michigan because there are Muslims turning on him, that still would not account for the lead that Donald Trump has, at least not in our polling. While he does appear to be doing better with non-whites of all stripes in all different demographics that we have been talking about, and that includes Muslims, it's not. It does not account for his entire lead. It is very clearly right. I 100% agree with Red Eagle on this point. It is very clear to me that his lead is coming from the Southeast. He got creamed in Oakland against Biden. It's like 16 points or something like that. Hillary, because there were third parties, she won Oakland, but she did not win it by Biden's margin. And then Macomb was a tighter margin, even though Trump won it. And that's in and of itself an incredible victory for any Republican. He's won it twice now, but that's not the sum total. He is not losing Oakland as badly as he lost it against Biden. He is winning Macomb by a greater margin. He is doing even better in Monroe, which is there are more traditional Republicans there. But it is the Macomb, Oakland, and then even to the north of that, Saginaw and Genesee, those areas where there are blue and to some extent white collar, but blue collar workers in the Detroit metro area that are really affected by the auto industry. And I think Biden's lost their trust. And there are white collars who still benefit from the auto industry that they don't believe him anymore. And I really think that is where I don't really think it is now. What, 3 polls in Michigan we've done for the Rust Belt poll? At least 2, right? It is definitely the Southeast, which I have highlighted in both press releases back to back, because that is where that margin is coming from. And many of these counties were Obama counties, or Obama just did better in them than the last 2 Democrats, and they're not performing there now. Trust me, I saw Biden creaming Trump in Oakland. I saw that happening. It did not. This is different. It is very different. All right. With that in mind, I'm going to get ready. Let's cue the music. Let's just kill it because we have less show time than we usually do. Welcome to the short recap of Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, the Makeup Edition. So, because there is no recording of what happened yesterday on Monday, that leads me to believe that was a StreamYard thing, not a Rumble or Locals thing, just so you guys know, because I saw a lot of people ripping on Rumble and Locals. It wasn't that. My Locals time is not taken. We have a certain amount of time. They'll always expand it if you need it, but you have a certain amount of time, and I can see that logged. So that must have been for StreamYard. At first, I didn't think it was, because some people were telling me that YouTube still went live, and I went back and looked for it. I don't see it. I see the schedule of it, but I don't see the show. There would be a recording if StreamYard fired off, and there's no recording. So it had to be. All right. Any event, we're going to do about an hour today. There's a lot I want to get through. We can save some for tomorrow, but some of it will just be stale. So let's start and let's just roll right into it. But actually, before we do, thank you for all the well wishes and all the prayers and everything that we all got. And locals knows what I'm talking about, especially. But there's no, it's not, things people saying, hey, I hope everything's good and done. Well, it's not done. It's not over. This is life. And unfortunately, there gets a point in all our ages, the ages of our grandparents, our parents, and eventually we will be there ourselves. When this is what happens. It's the inevitability. They always say there's only two things that are certain: death and taxes, and it's a good old Republican saying. And that certainly is true, and unfortunately, that's the way it is. But it looks like out of the woods, not over, but out of the woods for now. And it is funny. I just want to say this. It is funny how the universe works sometimes. You could see like like I know some really awful people who we are all like flawed and fallible, and I know I am, and I have done really stupid stuff in my life, but there are some people who like make good on their wrongs and do better, even little things like living your life better, your diet, making sure you're not overeating and mistreating yourself and your own body. And then of course, maybe not, for instance, not being a drunk who's bad to your family anymore, right? And then there are people who never change and they're just awful forever. And I had a friend, his grandmother was like 95 years old. Every day we'd go, she'd be on the stoop with a bottle of Southern Comfort and like a pack of Pall Malls, just crushing every day. At least that pack is gone. And I think it was like a pint or a fifth. I mean, maybe a fifth. I'm not even kidding. This old lady would pound this Southern Comfort. She lived till she was like 98 years old. Now, I thought she was funny and cool. I was young back then, of course, but I thought she made me laugh. She was a funny old lady, very dirty, funny old lady, but just hilarious. And she lived till like 98, I think, something like that. And then we all have these people in our family or in our friends circles where they're just like, you think they're just going to live forever. And then you have people who have done the right thing or at least have pivoted and tried to do the right thing. And unfortunately, they don't get as much time on this earth as some of it. So it does leave you wondering, like, and the universe just doesn't make sense sometimes, All right, but let's get into this. Now, it's funny because as I was talking yesterday and you didn't hear it at all. Guys, I don't know if you know this. I did like almost an entire freaking show not knowing you guys weren't there because Laura wasn't with me. She was dealing with that stuff. So it's a lot harder for me to monitor the output all by myself. I don't like looking at a monitor. It's there, right there. I don't like looking at it. It distracts me. I mean, Laura's like trained me to look into the camera and talk to you. So, it throws me off when I do that. Can't read from a teleprompter. I just can't stand it. I don't mind the switchboard and stuff. Actually, I don't mind doing on my own, but that's, I can't believe how much I said that you're never going to hear. But I was saying that there had been a new poll by, I believe it was Signal, which I'm going to pop it up in a second anyway, and we're going to look. And you'll see that Trump was up in Texas by 9. Before that was a Marist poll, which is heavily skewed Democratic. That had Trump up by 12. Some polls seem to suggest Trump is running stronger. I would say most seem to suggest Trump is running stronger than Cruz, and it is on the back of his Hispanic vote that Cruz does not get. And then others seem to suggest they're both running about even, and it looks pretty like, a historic bigger than 6-7 points. Republicans usually win it in a presidential election. It looks like Trump is going more back to that 12-point margin Republicans used to win Texas by before the real explosion of the suburbs in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, right? Which used to be very, very, actually the suburbs there used to be conservative, but over time things have changed and it's less married now, it's less white now, and that certainly makes a difference. But it looks like Trump is, and I had said this looks like Trump is winning by a larger margin in Texas than he did in either 16 or 20. But nevertheless, don't be surprised if Florida votes to the right of Texas. That's what we had said. And as we did, as you can see, the Real Clear Politics average here. All right. Well, you see the latest polls. These are, you can click on and get the averages. But the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation certainly finds Cruz in the lead. But without a doubt, if you go through this poll, you will see that Trump is, even though they're at the same vote shares, that's statistics. If you have 5 people you're running against versus or 4 you're running against versus 1, you're going to obviously get a lower vote share. Trump is doing much better. Anyway, it's 12-point margin. The other day, going down here, you can see Signal. If it's just 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, right? You have Cruz winning by roughly the same margin, but not at the same vote share. And if you go through both of these, what you'll find is that Trump is doing better with non-whites in Texas, especially. You're going to see some of these polls don't give everything. I wish they would, but you're going to see that come November, you're going to see that Trump is doing much better in those southern Hispanic counties that are along the border. And then that day, right before, and we were talking about this yesterday when I was, and you guys weren't there, you could see that Trump's lead in Florida, while about the same floor, or about the same, yeah, I would say that probably is his floor. Emerson looks like a carbon copy of our poll. Scott is ahead of Debbie Marcarsel Power, however you say her name. This is a carbon copy of our poll. Is it not? This is a carbon copy of Big Data Poll, which we had to hear from everybody. Oh, it doesn't make sense. Trump can't be up by 13. And I said this, and I'm just going to say it again, because I wish, it was heard when I first said it. I have polled Florida more accurately than any other pollster on planet Earth since I have been a public pollster. I have never seen leads as big as this in a presidential election. I was the first one to tell everybody at the height of Ron DeSantis' popularity that his approval rating was in the mid, headed to the high 50s, and could in fact even get to 60% maybe. We topped out around 57% or 58. I have to go back and look, but we were the first ones to do that. All to the naysayers, for weeks and weeks, until some other schmuck runs a poll and comes up with the same damn thing that Big Data Poll does. The only difference, however, is that RCP puts them up and we don't get the credit for leading the trend. Thank you, Decision Desk, for doing that. And I also said this, which I'm going to say again, because we're going to look at a poll that's from Patrick Ruffini over at right? It is. I believe it's, let me just make sure. Yes, conducted by Echelon Insights, which I believe is Patrick Ruffini. And I don't understand why that poll is not on Real Clear Politics. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it was conducted for the Heritage Foundation and Daily Caller, but that's no different than the Morning Consult poll being conducted for Bloomberg. It's not. It's no different than Franklin and Marshall. Where does Franklin and Marshall get their money from? Where does Franklin and Marshall and their shitty Biden plus 10 in Pennsylvania that nobody believes yet is still on RCP? Where the hell does Franklin and Marshall get their money from? A whole lot of conservatives out there making sure they got a grant at Franklin and Marshall? Get the out of here. This shit's getting annoying now. Patrick's poll should be up there. What Decision Desk is doing is much better. Not deciding who is and who isn't, worth, acknowledging. Having a simple weighting system for stale data. That's why I'm sorry. RCP's average did okay, and they are the OGs of the aggregate. They invented the polling average. They did. And they should be given credit for that. But their average in many states, including New Hampshire, their national tracker was way behind. Why? Well, let's be honest, at the risk of sounding immodest, our polling is in there, which cuts trends. And then others like Emerson follow it. And then they use a simple weighting system for stale data so you don't have month-old polls. Biden plus 8s. There are 2 outliers repeatedly now in the state of Florida. I like one. I'm friends with one. But he's a repeated outlier. If his poll is a month and a half old and it's the only blue friggin' poll in the average, it probably should not have the weight that the new polls have that show a very different scenario, especially when you're picking and choosing. Franklin and Marshall sucks, but it's their name. Their name gets them on RCP. They blow. Biden plus 13, Clinton plus 12. It's an embarrassment. And Patrick Ruffini can't be on there? Because he what? Conducted it for the Heritage Foundation? Bite me. Anyway, shit is getting annoying, folks. By the way, Fairleigh Dickinson's another one. All name. Well-known pollster for the state of New Jersey, along like Monmouth. Well-known. How have they done lately? Dare I say I may have to move Maryland to a toss-up. I'll believe it when I see it. It's such a waste of money. Really hate to have to poll Maryland. Oh, that's another thing you missed. Oh, these stupid-ass critics. That's another thing about the sponsor thing. What about the omnibus model? We're an open-source, crowd-funded poll for the Public Polling Project. You can literally see who's donating. If they don't want to, they can make it anonymous, but you can still see the dollar amounts that come in. How do you know who's paying $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 a question to sponsor an omnibus poll? How do you know? You don't know. Did you ask them? What questions did you put on and which person gave you $1,500 to insert a question? Don't tell me one's more credible than the other. Give me a break. And that's fine. That model's been around for a while. But the point is, at least one right there. Bam! Sponsored by so-and-so. They're still putting his name on it. And by the way, Echelon Insights hasn't been super friendly to Donald Trump. Especially not their national polling. And we went by PVI, which I guess we don't have time to do today. But if you look at the Heritage poll, which I'd like to do, what I did was compare the Heritage poll, which a lot of people thought was just not realistic, to the New York Times poll. And in fact, you can see the New York Times poll down here. It is a move toward Biden. But as I had said, that poll in specifically did have some really weird stuff to it, even though we both kind of ballooned out to a Trump plus 4 to 6 in the same time period. It was still had some like rather unbelievable numbers in it. Trump was taking 10% of Biden's vote, but Biden was taking less than half of 1% of Trump's, when usually it very clearly that's the true swing. That ratio favors Trump 2-1, 3-1. We never had a 10-1 before. And then you can see, you know what? Let me swap it out real quick just so you guys can look at it. We never had a 10-1 like they did, or it was actually more than 10-1 because, again, it was 10 to less than 0.5%. But now Trump is still ahead with that swap off, and it's a 1-point win. Also, another thing, this is only a likely electorate, and the New York Times has been giving Biden anywhere between 2 and 4 points on the likely voter electorate. What do I mean by that? We are giving you the registered voter sample, plus we are showing you these are likely voters, these are unlikely voters. All of that is the same in the crosstab, and the aggregator can choose whichever one he wants. Among likely voters, we are showing you the difference, and then we're showing you who is unlikely. They're registered, but they're unlikely. All right. And then, of course, you have the I did not vote. You can see that people who voted in 2020, they're much more likely to vote than those who did not. And we have the same thing. We see the same thing. Almost certain. And we do basically say certain. Very likely. This is what we do. We very close. You just don't see it all behind the scenes. But we tell people and we show you what the probability is. These people are likely. There's a greater or equal to 50% chance, less than 100, of course, but greater than 50% that they will show up. And then there's a certain. These people are going to show up. We think it's nearly certain that they would show up. And then there's the unlikely, which is everyone who's below. There's a less than 50% chance that they will show up. Not greater or less, greater or more is likely, less than 50 is unlikely. And then there can be that they are certain that they are not going to vote. And those are people who are in the paltry single digits. So um if you count those who are almost certain, it's 29% say they're very likely. There is a significant number of people who did not vote in 2020 who are reporting that they are going to vote. And obviously, the New York Times has made the decision that they are in the likely category. Typically, this electorate has benefited Biden more, but in the last few months, it has not. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make. I don't have 2 hours today, but yes, Trump has made changes. It's been all over the news. Rasmussen just ran a poll. Not only do Republicans support these changes, but a majority of all voters, all likely voters, excuse me, do support what Trump is doing at the RNC. And of course, Michael Watley's coming in. You have Laura Trump becoming very vocal. We got to chase the ballots. We got to chase the ballots. Vote early. They need to start to use better language because we poll tested this. Republicans don't like certain words and it turns them off with early voting. They're way behind in all of this research and they better figure it out because they don't have very much time. And another part of that Rasmussen poll was, do you think Democrats know how to win elections? And it was overwhelming. It wasn't a majority. It was like 40-something% to a mere 17% who said that Republicans know how to win elections. Another third or so said that, neither or whatever, or something like that, or both. But either way, Democrats way ahead. So even people, likely voters know that Democrats are better at winning the logistics of winning elections. This is the point I want you to understand, want to start sink into you. Yes, Trump, and to a lesser extent, Republicans overall, but Trump is performing very well. And he has a history of outperforming his polls. But you got to get these people out. Yes, he's doing better with black and brown voters, but you got to get these people out. All right, so in any event, some things you saw return to a bit of norm in the New York Times poll. Oh, something else I want to show you real quick. They'll never get back to me, but I asked them. The leader, our practice is that the leader goes on top. Whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden, sometimes we'll do the incumbency factor, but we'll tell you this is the incumbent, and that will be in the crosstab. There seems to be no rhyme or reason. I don't know whether they're doing it on purpose or not. Maybe they're not even consciously doing it, but Joe Biden is on top even though he's losing. Fine. Maybe that's not their practice. Maybe it's the practice of the New York Times to put the incumbent on top. Except it's not. Here's the 2020 final poll from the New York Times. Donald Trump, of course, here is the incumbent. If we reverse time, if we went back in time and said, hey, Nate, why did you put Biden first? Well, of course, he's ahead. All right. So why is this the case now? Inconsistency with any kind of a pollster raises a red flag to me. You understand what I'm saying? They have a bias toward Joe Biden. That bias is so strong, it comes out on their freaking crosstab design. Maybe, again, they don't even know they're doing it. But then what else do they don't know they're doing? Weighting something incorrectly? Overlooking certain lack of representations with certain demographic groups? I don't like that shit. You do something one way, you make it a best practice, you make it your standard practice, and you stick with it. This may seem little to you. Some of you may be out there going, Rich, it's not that big of a deal, man. It is. As somebody who works with the human mind for a living, it is a big deal. And every once in a while, people can get screwed up. I'm sure I screwed something like this up every once in a while, but you won't be able to pour through my crosstabs and see it going on all the time. You won't. You will see consistency. Period. We even have Biden v. Trump in our things, in our row, in our columns, in the selectors. Why do we do that? Biden is the incumbent. But leaders come first in the rows. Unless, again, it's shown incumbent. We swapped it off back and forth a little bit with the election 2020 project, but you saw incumbent. This is them doing this because that's who they are. Anyway, let's look at what's going on this time with the 2020 vote. It isn't 10-1 this time. 3%, not a half of 1% of Trump's vote from 2020 is going to Biden. That's up, of course, even though it's marginal considering the sampling error. However, it was 10% for Biden of Biden's vote going to Trump last time. Now it's 7%. That's still more than a 2-1 swap. On this many votes, almost 160 million votes. That's a lot of votes. And we've been through this math before. I don't have to tell you it again. Those who did not vote, however, it's Trump plus 6. This is what's going to make the election, folks. And forget about the rest of the rows. This final column, 36, 42, 21. Don't know, refuse. It is the job of the Trump campaign, as it was the job of the Obama campaign back in 2008, to get those people out, because there are polls and then there are votes. There are polls and then there are elections. I want this strawberry, Laura, is dangling in front of my face. So give me 2 seconds.
I just grew it.
No, you didn't.
Yes.
That's the best strawberry in the world. You didn't put any sugar on this?
I just grew it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You didn't put anything sweet. This is delicious.
That's naturally it.
This strawberry tastes like a grocery store strawberry that you sprinkle sugar on. That's how good this strawberry is. And I mean like a good grocery store.
I know how to grow, baby.
I'm over here chomping in the microphone.
Well, I thought you wanted to partake. Come on.
Damn right I do, but I don't want to slurp in the microphone on these poor people. And you, Winston, you stay out of the garden beds because I'm going to need me some more of that.
I know. He almost stepped up.
That's why he keeps going in there, Laura, of course. You kidding me? He wants that stuff. So good. All right. Also, we see the black vote share is back down. It was 22% in the New York Times poll prior. It is now down to 16. However, let me explain something to you real quick. If you go and look at the 2020 final New York Times poll, you will see they only registered Trump's black support at 4%. That would be it. By region, even though it's now Trump plus 1, not Trump plus 4, or whatever the last New York Times poll, by region, this is a bloodbath poll for Biden. And let me explain why. Midwest, Trump leads Biden in the Midwest 50-41. Back, of course, in 2020, where are you, Midwest? Here's the region. Joe Biden was ahead in the Midwest 48-43. Big swing. Where are the battleground states again? Somebody help me out here. I'm forgetting. Right. The big key battleground states are in the blue wall in the Rust Belt, or the so-called blue wall that Trump has a unique ability to win. And then, of course, there are one, maybe two. If you say two, let's call it 2 battlegrounds. There used to be 3 battleground states in the South. Now it's really Georgia, North Carolina. It's North Carolina, of course, it's a perennial purple state, as Liberty always likes to say. But it has really voted Republican and is getting more Republican. Everybody should acknowledge that. It has signs. It has a flavor of Florida circa 2016 to 2018, where it was just about to explode. 2018, I would say, where it's just about to explode and resist national trends. If you remember, in 2018, Florida resisted most of the national trend toward Democrats in the midterm elections. You might have noticed North Carolina resisted all of those national swings to the Democratic Party in the 2022 midterm. Ted Budd easily dispatched Sherry Beasley, even though she ran as a moderate, non-white, somewhat conservative Democrat, which was insane, of course, because she has a record which is liberal and crazy. But she got thumped, and Democrats were thumped in both the state Supreme Court races, which is how Voter ID is instilled now, which is how open carry in the state is now been established. And then we move on to, of course, the legislatures where Republicans won super majorities to override Governor Cooper, the Democrats' veto in the House and the Senate. So there was a red wave in North Carolina in 22 that completely resisted Democrats' ability, the shift that Democrats got that favored them at the last minute. Anyway, then we have the Northeast, which Biden was ahead in 56 to 35, right? The Northeast is now 56 to 39. So Biden maintained his support. He fell in the Midwest and he fell considerably. Trump rose considerably. In the Northeast, Biden maintained, but Trump rose. Why? What's going on here? In the Northeast, this is the 4 census region definitions. And then there are, of course, divisions. In divisions, you can separate out New England, the Mid-Atlantic, right? Well, in New England, there is one state that appears to be swinging to Trump. Whether or not it's enough to take the whole state, we'll see in future polling. But Maine has moved to Donald Trump toward him. And then you have, of course, that's New England. Everywhere else, I'm skeptical. We'll see what happens with New Hampshire. It's a different breed. Maine is a different breed from New Hampshire. There's no doubt. There's French Canadians and Catholics in Maine that settled there many years ago. It's a different situation. And then in the Mid-Atlantic region, which is all again part of the Mid-Atlantic division, which is all again part of the Northeast region, you have what? You have Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. A recent Siena College poll showed New York is a single-digit race, high single-digit, but single-digit with the entrance of third-party candidates. New Jersey, a new Emerson poll not that long ago, about a week and a half ago, showed that New Jersey is single digits, 7 points. We're going backwards to the time of 04 if that continues. And then you have Pennsylvania, which, again, I think that goes without saying. So it's a big problem that Biden hasn't gained any support, but Trump has. All right. And then in the South, Trump is now ahead 52 to 40. Again, key battleground states in the South. Georgia, we could say Florida, but Georgia, North Carolina. All right. Back in their polling, in their final poll in 2020, Biden was holding his own in their poll in the South. Donald Trump was winning 48 to 44, which brings us to the West. In this poll in the West, where there are, of course, battleground states. You got California there, which appeared to have tightened. It's not going to go red, but it appears to have tightened due to Trump's increased appeal among non-whites, especially in the Central Valley. You have Nevada. You have the Silver State. And, of course, you have the Grand Canyon State to the south, southeast, Arizona. If he is doing better with Hispanics, which, by the way, he's not winning Hispanics anymore in this poll like he was in their last poll, but he's still doing better than he was in their polling before. And he's doing better than he actually did in the action. This is George Bush level support. George W. Bush, 2004. Even if this is right. Out in the West, you have those very key battleground states alone, Nevada and Arizona, and Trump now is only trailing 53 to 43. That's a far cry from where it was back in 2020. When Biden, again, by the way, he felt that's a decline in support from 22. He was at 56. That's a decline to 53 now. And Trump up from 33%. It's an improvement. That's a 10-point gain for Donald Trump and a 3-point loss for Joe Biden. That is a significant regional swing. So even if, again, it's tighter, what does this mean? A Trump +1, given the PVI of all these other states, would absolutely indicate that Donald Trump's going to win this election. Absolutely. And I'm not trying to be complacent here. The polling absolutely does indicate that Trump would win. But again, should Republicans take this all? Whoops, why isn't it showing up? Should Republicans take this? What happened here? Did they get rid of it? What are you guys seeing, actually? Yeah, you are seeing that. Hold on. I don't know why. Did they delete the image? I'm going to show the old version. Let's show the old version. Because even, voters don't think that Republicans are capable of doing this. They cannot rely on Donald Trump's unique ability to appeal to these people forever. And they should not rely on it this year. Which is why, regardless of what people thought about me, I hammered over and over again that you're going to blow what? $500 million, 50% of Mitt Romney's entire 2012 budget. You're going to blow $500 million trying to stop a man that was going to always win this nomination instead of doing what? Even if you don't like Trump, use this opportunity to build a vote gathering operation, a true infrastructure to go out and get these votes. And you don't appeal to these people. He does. You don't. You don't like him? At least use him to add them to your rolls. And I don't want any crowd. Well, you didn't know he was going to win. It was the indictments. Democrats screwed everything up. He was always going to win. You did not dent his working class margin enough. And once we pivoted, even if you beat him in like New Hampshire, once we pivoted to the South, you were going to get your ass kicked. Once we pivoted to the Midwest, you were going to get your ass kicked because the Republican primary, all of those delegates are predominantly doled out by working class non-college voters. You want a college educated primary? Go to the Democratic Party. Let me just warn you, they're a minority in the Electoral College. Michigan, 65% non-college. Pennsylvania, 62% non-college. On and on and on and on. So there you have it. So I did want to say, even if, let's just say for a second that New York Times poll is right and it's Trump +1, let's take a look at that poll that recently came out because we do have the other polls. God, if Fairleigh Dickinson is even remotely right, Republicans are just so pathetic. You got a senator who allegedly, and I'm saying allegedly because it's not fair to Bob Menendez. He deserves his day in court. But you can't even beat a party when their senator has been caught or allegedly caught taking money from foreign governments, even gold, bars of gold, for crying out loud. I mean, the Democratic Party could have property of China stamped on their forehead, and some people would still vote for these people. And they just don't get, this is how dumb this party is. And by the way, not Trump, he's pretty close, according to the Emerson poll. Pathetic. I know a ton of people in Monmouth and Ocean County who would come out for Donald Trump, but would never, ever, ever, ever come out for somebody like Huggy. We used to call him Huggy. Anyway, here's the Heritage Foundation poll. Let's just take a note of it. When we do the Rust Belt poll, we like much larger samples, and that's going to come out in their error rate. Our error rates are never going to be this high in the polls we do. The overall for across all 6 states, which is Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, across all 6 states, they collected 2,401 interviews. That gives them an overall sampling error of 2.3%. Margin of error is an incorrect use of terminology, but it's so commonplace now. I'm the only one who points it out. Overall, it's 2.3, but within the battleground states, it is as follows. Arizona, plus or minus 5.7. In Georgia, plus or minus 5.7. Michigan, plus or minus 5.3. Nevada, plus or minus 5.8. Pennsylvania, plus or minus 5.5. Wisconsin, plus or minus 5.5. Out of these states, or out of the Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania, and out of all these states, but Pennsylvania has a larger sample population, a targeted population of samples. So Pennsylvania should have had a larger sample size, which means it should have had a smaller error rate. Michigan is not that far behind, but they are behind several million. So it's a little weird to me that Michigan has a smaller one. They may have just decided we're going to collect a certain amount per state, and when we're done with that, we're good. That could have been their decision. That's fine. When we designed the Rust Belt poll, for instance, and even when we do the Sun Belt poll, it will be proportionate, or it will be the standard for each state, because we have minimum sampling standards. They're guidelines that we go by in our company. You're not allowed to poll the state of Florida with 800 votes anymore, like 800 interviews anymore. That's not enough. You cannot poll Pennsylvania with, 600 interviews anymore. That's not enough. It's not. We separate Dutch country, for instance, from the rest of southeastern Pennsylvania. So I don't know how the hell you would do that but people do it. And some people don't have bad results, horrible results. All right. 55% of the Battleground voters believe that the Biden administration is a failure, including 65% of 2024 swing voters. Well, if that's the case, Biden almost has no chance to win this election. Hispanic men, 62% say that Biden's administration is a failure. Hispanic men under 50 or a little bit less at 58, but men over 50, 69. College men, 55%. College women, 46%. Young voters, 18 to 35, 60% say that the Biden administration is a failure. Married women, 56%. Moms, 60, dad, 64. And again, this is something I'm trying to recall what I had said during the show yesterday that, is gone and in the ether forever. Republicans, it is too simple to say Republicans have a problem with suburban women. That is too simple, and it is not sufficient enough to explain what's going on. What kind of suburb? A metro suburb or a coastal suburb, maybe? Coastal Myrtle Beach. Do they have a problem with women in Myrtle Beach? No. Do they have a problem with women in Morehead City? No. They have a problem with single women in suburban and urban areas who never have been married, have no children, and have done nothing but go to college for way too long in their entire life. That for what is most of their adult life. That is the woman they have a problem with, and there just happens to be more of them, and they're less white than they used to be. Moving on. Retrospective job approvals, given what they just said about Biden, awful. Across the 6 states for Biden, it is awful. Negative 18%. 40% approve, 58% disapprove, and that is including 24% who strongly approve and 51% who strongly disapprove. In retrospect, with Trump, he is positive 50 to 49. However, 44% is a strong disapproval. 32% is a strong approval. So we still, got a little bit of a negative intensity index there. A little bit. He's got a negative 12 intensity index. But hell, it ain't negative 27. Among swing voters, awful. 73% disapprove the job that Joe Biden is doing. 3% strongly approve. That's it. Now, with Trump, it was 7%, but at least 33, a third of them, said that they did approve, and his disapproval combined is 20 points less than Biden, almost 18 points less than Biden, and only 31% of that really strongly disapproved. In Arizona, Trump is above water by 2. In Georgia, by almost 10, by 9 points. In Michigan, -1. Nevada, -1. In PA, +1. And in Wisconsin, -4. I don't have all the time to go through it. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow. I'm saving this more. Why ethnicity matters is the topic of the show tomorrow, by the way. Why ethnicity matters. If you're in book club, you're going to follow along with this marvelously, because we just got done reading, of course, Kevin Phillips, The Emerging Populist Majority. If you are in book club with us, get Troy Olson and Gavin Wax's The Emerging Populist Majority from Amazon. We're going to do a primer first on Ray Teixeira on the Emerging Democratic Majority, but we're going to do a primer on it. We're going to read, like we did, the reaction to the book when it came out. Very different than what Warren wrote in the New York Times in 69 when the emerging Republican majority came out. Oh my God, this is racist. This is so terrible. This is terribly racist. I mean, it's, the normal blabber and nonsense. It really was. I can't understand it, but I know he's right. I'm not smart enough to really get it though. But oh shit, we're in trouble. You may imagine. Take 10 guesses. I'll give you a hint how the reaction to Teixeira was. Oh, he's brilliant. What brilliant. The emerging Democratic majority. I don't think I've ever read a more brilliant person. Fucking frauds. Anyway, we're going to read that. We're going to read something that's a little bit more modern. It's we're going back in time still 4 years, but it's a little bit more modern about who really is. Was it Obama? Was it Biden? What does the emerging Democratic majority actually look like if it were to happen? Did Obama do it in 08? Did he do it in 12? Did Biden really do it in 20? And then is that it for them? Because of course, there was a big if in that entire thesis, and Donald Trump has stepped all over it. Which brings us to what we're going to finish with our primer with, which is Teixeira himself. Why not read the author himself, the father of the thesis, and his recent work on I always forget its name, The Liberal Patriot, I think, something like that. And we'll send out the links and we'll get you guys familiar with it before it's book club time. But that's what we're going to do. Because who better to react to what's going on today than the guy who wrote that? Unfortunately, we can't ask Kevin Phillips what he thinks. He did pass away when we were reading his work. Recently. Was not long ago at all. But why ethnicity matters, we'll get into more tomorrow. We're going to poll Wisconsin soon. The deal is, what is the deal, right? That's going to be the deal. What is the deal with Wisconsin? Is it doing what it normally does, which is poll crazy, but then end up being the most Republican? Or is there a plausible argument, given what we are seeing with, how big is this realignment going to be that huge? And then, what are the implications of that realignment in Wisconsin? Does that make it a less Trumpy state now? That's it. That's as much as I'm giving you for now, because we're just going to have to wait until tomorrow. But ethnicity does matter. $6.48. Like I said, though, nobody gives two shits at all about Donald Trump's jury selection process beginning this week. The Seltzer poll. What else? The Seltzer poll. What was the other one that really did a good job explaining? The Suffolk poll. That's what it was. The Suffolk poll did a very good job explaining why it is that this is not sinking in and people just don't really seem to care. They don't seem to care. And we'll do that. And, we'll go over a little bit more of that tomorrow, but they're just tuned out. The Seltzer poll says that independents just believe it's malarkey. It's crap. It's junk. It's political persecution. I don't care. And the Suffolk poll echoed it, and 80% said, I care so little that I'm not even going to watch it. I've no interest whatsoever. But before we get into the rest of the poll, let's take a real quick break from our sponsors, which we need to read to you today. And honestly, it truly does blow my mind that there aren't more people talking about this. It was just not even a month ago at this point. On Thursday, March 21st, court ruled the FDA must delete every social media post that addressed the use of ivermectin for treatment, by the way, or prevention of COVID-19. It's been determined the FBI lied, and they demonized ivermectin and other effective drugs for the last 4 years. Of course, those that didn't cost $2,000 a pill and didn't work anyway, like remdesivir. It vindicated doctors like Peter McCullough. And they stood strong despite every cancellation campaign that was waged against them. But the question that people are still asking is, okay, but how do I get ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine? Most doctors, they fell for it. They still wouldn't even consider prescribing it. Well, I've got you covered. Keep listening, Every American needs one of these in their home at least. Americans are waking up and understanding that now more than ever, we need to have these life-saving medications on hand. They're not just remedies, folks. They're lifelines for the next times, because believe me, there will be a next time. And the wellness company's Contagion Emergency Kit has you covered. The only kit of its kind. This prescription emergency kit provides you with a carefully selected assortment of effective medications for COVID-19, other respiratory illnesses, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the Z-Pack, others. Oh, by the way, and a nebulizer. So you can rest easy knowing that you have all the emergency meds on hand, along with the guidebook for safe use. Backed by research and endorsed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough and Harvey Reich, the wellness company's Contagion Emergency Kit is a must-have. Must-have. Avoid the chaos, wait times, and price of a hospital, and have exactly what you need for as low as the cost of a single doctor visit. Go to twc.health/TPP. The link is in the description of the video. And grab your Contagion Emergency Kit right now. That's twc.health/TPP. That code will save you $30 at checkout. Kits are only available in the USA. Sorry to anybody who's not. I wish I had you covered for it. Whoops. It's the wrong one. All right. Let's go back. Yep. Let's go back. Back to the Heritage Foundation. We did this. And look at this. This is why I said last Friday, and I did expect the polls to close, but that Biden has a real freaking problem here. Even if they do, and they did in our polling as well, they did. I'm more comfortable seeing smaller leads for one candidate or another candidate because I know that that's reality. But it's also reality that when we ask people what their top voting issues are and who they trust more to handle on it, this is Biden's problem. There is an A-B choice still fresh in the mind of voters. Who did a better job? And despite COVID at the end of his term, like idiots like Chris Saliza from CNN, the stupid ass hack that he is, fighting with Sean Parnell the other day on Twitter. First of all, dumbass, more people died under Biden than did under Trump. Eat another cheeseburger. Secondly, we understand your cushion from inflation, with your stipend over at CNN. We understand your cushion from it, but nobody else can afford the 24% increase in eggs, milk, the 18% increase in gas. And the driving season isn't even here yet. To make some case that things were harder under Trump than Biden is just ludicrous. It's objectively false, demonstrably false, easily proven for you who may not know the definition of demonstrably. Easily proven to be. And voters aren't as stupid as either you are or you want them to be. Dealing with immigration on the border, net to Trump overall, 28. The economy, net to Biden overall, 19. By the way, among swing voters, net 43 and net 41, respectively. Maintaining peace and stability around the world, net 16 to Trump. Among swing voters, net 22. Help people from the rising cost of living, net 15 for Trump. Among swing voters, net 22. Keeping me and my family safe, net to 12 to Trump, net 25 among swing voters, 25. Looking out for middle-class families, a staple, or a once staple of the Democratic platform. Among all voters, net plus 10 to Trump, plus 15 among swing voters, making me feel more confident about the country. Just talking about this the other day. The reason, Friday, remember this? We talked all about economics last week. The reason Reagan, their real gift, Reagan and Trump, their real gift was what a cheerleader they were for the country. The optimism that they instilled in people, that was their gift. They recognize, really, government can't do shit. They just need to get out of the way and encourage people to believe in themselves and their dreams, and Americans will do big things. You can see it right there. Overall, net 7 to Trump, net 23 among swing voters. You think voters are going to go into the booth and say, gee, I want someone who makes me feel like shit about myself? Nope, they won't. Protecting our rights and freedoms, net 4 to Trump, net 10 among swing voters. So much for the old J6 thing. They overreached. Something else, by the way, the Salsa poll did a great job ferreting out. Combined with our stuff, you could very clearly see why it is they did what they did. How these minds have shifted, these perceptions about things like protecting democracy, even corruption, which we just put together at this point. Dealing with healthcare costs is the only thing that Biden, which is a big deal to everyone, has a advantage on, and that's only 19 among everyone. It's 2 among swing voters. Dealing with, by the way, 2 is marginal. Dealing with student loan debt, Democrats get, or Biden gets the 19-point advantage among everyone and 22% net among all swing voters. The problem for Joe Biden is those aren't the 2 top issues right now. By the way, healthcare costs are up even more under Biden. So here's the numbers. We're rounding this out right at the right time. Trump leads in 5 of 6 of these swing states. Biden is up by 1 in Wisconsin. There's an interesting thing, though, that I pointed out in the Ether episode, which is what we're going to call it. Trump is leading across all of these states by 5 points. Biden, because that definitely and probably is a way to kind of ferret out likely voters. All right. So, and lean people, by the way. And we don't do it that way. We have in the past, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little different than the way we like to do it now. All right. The New York Times poll is seeing it. We're seeing it. Obviously, Patrick and Echelon are seeing it. This advantage that Biden had going from a registered to likely voter sample is all but evaporated. And honestly, in several of these states, it depends. Trump actually appears to be doing better with likely voters, and it depends what state we're talking about. And you can see it here. When you lean, you can see it. 43 to 39 overall. But when you add the probablys and you're really leaning people here, Trump gains 6, Biden gains 5. So it goes from Trump plus 4 to Trump plus 5. Among swing voters, Trump plus 5. They're going to be the most undecided at this point. In Arizona, goes from Trump plus 5 to Trump plus 6. Likely voter actually helps Trump. Adding those leans gives him, or I would say the leaning situation too is really a big key, but adding those leans, Trump gains 5, Biden gains 4. Georgia, a little bit probably bullish, but again, I went over the PVI in the Ether episode, and the bottom line is, within the sampling eras, while probably a little bit too bullish for Trump in states like Georgia, for instance, and Michigan, and Nevada, they're still all within their sampling eras if you consider the PVI. So in Arizona, an R plus 3 state, or no, it's R plus 2 now, sorry, an R plus 2 state, if we're using the New York Times poll as a benchmark with 1 point lead nationally for Donald Trump, this is how you calculate the margin, the spread in the CPI. You take the CPI, which is R plus 2 in that state, in Arizona, double it, R plus 4, Trump plus 4, and then you add the margin or subtract it that you see in the national poll. In the New York Times poll, it's Trump plus 1. So if it doubles to 4, you add another 1, and that would be 5. You would expect Trump to be leading by about 5 points in Arizona. And guess what? He's up by 6 here. In Georgia, it's a little bit more of Georgia's R plus 3. So double it to 6, add the plus 1. Georgia, you would expect it to be plus 7. Probably a little bit too bullish in this poll. You got them up by 10 both. You got them up by 10 with the probablys, and with the definitelys, and you got them up by 10 with the probablys added. So again, probably a little bit too bullish, but considering you're talking about a 5 and change sampling error in the survey, he's up by about that amount. Not 10. I'm talking about he's within the range of the PVI. In Michigan, Trump plus 6. In Nevada, which is the same PVI, by the way, as Arizona. And Nevada actually resisted the national swing a hair more from 2020. It doesn't shock me to see that Trump has some pretty solid leads in that state. If he's up by 1 nationally. R plus 3, double it, R plus 6, add the national vote. There you have it. They got him. Actually, that's identical to the PVI. Pennsylvania, 49-45. Pennsylvania's an R plus 1 state, I believe. So you'd expect them to be up by about 3 in the state of Pennsylvania. I think so, right? Isn't Pennsylvania R plus 1? I'd have to go and look. Just did it yesterday, but I don't remember all anymore. Wisconsin is the outlier here. And it is typically the case that Trump outperforms his polls in Wisconsin. Many Republicans do. Ron Johnson did not last time, by the way. He did not. And why would that be? The get out the vote operation. Turnout was juiced in Dane County. Turnout was juiced in Milwaukee. Turnout was down in red areas, in some areas. They did not get the same juice as a share of, say, the 2020 vote. In 22, they did not get the juice in the red areas that the Democrats got in the blue areas. So they were able to cut what should have been really a 3 to 5 point lead down to a nail biter. 1 point. But there are some key ethnic groups in Wisconsin that do make it, theoretically on paper, a little bit tougher. Will Trump's populism carry the day and cancel that out in the end? I don't know the answer to that yet. We're going to poll real soon in Wisconsin. Before Laura kills me. Just going to give time. Just going to give Laura a little bit of time to soak in how much we lost after from doing all this polling without hitting the fundraising targets. I'm giving Laura a little bit of time to get over that number because by the way, it's too late. I warned you guys yesterday. It was tax day. File your taxes, get your tax in if you didn't already. And last week, Laura was like, what? I don't always tell her everything. Like, hey, this one didn't make the mark. We're gonna pull the trigger on this poll. Yeah, honey. I used the same campaign for the national poll for as a benchmark to the Rust Belt poll. So we lost on that one. She was like, you do this again this year, I'll kill you. So, we lost. We could have made a lot more, but I thought it was important that we really play ball, that we really be players in this primary this year. So, we polled. I knew it was going to be crazy. I knew it was going to be a crazy run. I knew we were going to see crazy stuff. And part of me was like, let's keep these people honest. So we paid for a lot. And I'm going to give her a little bit of time to get over that, but I need to poll Wisconsin real soon. And she will. And we'll move on. And that'll be it. But don't forget, okay, it's 7:05, so we'll cut the brakes here. But don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. Do not miss tomorrow. Why ethnicity matters. Why ethnicity matters. All right. Yeah, like, share, shoot them far and wide to friends and family that would like the content. And of course, while we appreciate follows, shares, everything else that goes along with it, while we like it on other places, and we're thankful for it, the best place to follow us is on Locals. People's Pundit, Locals, peoplespundit.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. You will be more privy to things there, number one, and you'll get things before others. Even if sometimes it's slight, you're still going to get it before others. I feel like I'm missing an announcement, but I'm not, I guess. Right. Looks like I'm about to do Stinchfield sometime this week. Go visit my friend Jack sometime this week. Tomorrow, of course, we'll have Sean Parnell on Battleground at 5 p.m. Anything else, I'll let you know. Just keep your eyes peeled to your, of course, locals posts, and you'll hear it there. All right. With that in mind, I'm out like trout. See you tomorrow. Thanks for a shorter episode of Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Noon Eastern Standard Time. Nothing but love for you. All the best, folks. See you then. And as always, deuces. Don't forget tomorrow. Why ancestry matters. Oh, and damn right, I gotta make this up to her, Eric. Damn right. I'm on trial this week. Voir dire, nobody cares. I'm out.